While you're stuck in rush hour traffic, thousands of Americans are already living abroad, sipping Mai Tais on the beach in beautiful places like Bali, Indonesia, Phuket, Thailand, or even Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Now, how do I know this? Well, as someone that is working 100% remote myself, I've been to these places and I've talked with many of these people firsthand. And the reality is that most of them are living like kings. And here's the craziest part. Chances are, most of them are much less intelligent than you. They simply picked the right career path that was friendly to this remote work lifestyle and stuck to it long enough to see success. Now, in this video, I'm going to share with you the top 4 remote jobs for Americans who want to live abroad. So number 4 is going to be English teaching. The nice thing about this is a very low barrier to entry. Essentially, you just need a certification to be able to do this. And if you're watching this video, chances are you're a native English speaker if you're from America or something like that, or your English would at least be good enough to be able to do this with some basic certification. There's plenty of job openings for this too across the world, because for a lot of countries, like if you can learn how to speak English, then you can make a lot more money in that country. So the natives of that country, they want to learn the language as best they can. They want you to teach their kids as well so they can have a better life. This is something that is very high in demand. Now, some of the downsides to this is, although it's high in demand, the pay tends to be very, very low. You're not going to be able to live a lavish lifestyle. You're not going to be able to do a lot of the stuff that you see out there on Instagram all the time. There's not much career advancement. There's pretty much no career advancement for something like this. You're just pretty much going to be an English teacher. Maybe you can get a slight pay bump, but that's kind of going to be what you're limited to there. Also, keep in mind that this is what I would say somewhat location independent. Now, what I mean by that is, sure, initially you can choose where you want to be an English teacher from, and there's many opportunities throughout the world, pretty much any continent you want to do this on. But once you pick that location, you're kind of locked into that location because you're going to be teaching from there, from a physical school, chances are. So it's not like you're going to be able to go just run off wherever you want, go to whatever country whenever you want. There's a lot better opportunities if you're looking for something like that, a more digital nomad style of life that I'll cover in the future slides here. But for this one, that is what it's, one of the limitations of that. And also, it's not a very good long-term option in most cases. For one thing, like I said, because of the career advancement limitations, but also because of visas. You see, most of the time with visas, if you're going to be on a student teaching visa, it's going to be limited to only a couple years, a few years. Of course, it depends on the country, but if you're really looking to stay somewhere long-term, like let's say 5 years plus, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that as a teacher. You're going to have to look at other ways, other avenues of being able to make something like that happen. Now, number 3 is copywriting. This one is also a pretty low barrier to entry, but it does allow you to be more remote than the English teacher is, because with copywriting, if you're not familiar with that is, essentially you're the person that writes the marketing materials for a company, whether it's emails, whether it's something like writing the ad copy, writing any of the written materials that a business would use to acquire customers, nurture leads, things like that. So as you can imagine, especially in the modern day, if it's like digital marketing, then that can be done from anywhere in the world, and it is 100% location independent. So this is a huge upside if you are someone that's looking for that more digital nomad style of life. It'll allow you a lot of freedom there, but there are definite downsides. Number 1 is that it is actually pretty low demand unless you're expert level. There's a few reasons for this, but the biggest one is AI. AI is coming in and changing all, and disrupting all the industries, but especially when it comes to copywriting. What a lot of businesses are doing now is they're replacing a lot of their copywriters with AI, because AI has proven to be pretty decent in this area. And so what I've heard from my friends in the space that are different business owners and stuff is that good copywriters are still high in demand, but it's mostly just the rock star copywriters that are able to weather the storm of this AI thing. You can absolutely still do this and pursue this path as a way to get, this lifestyle, but just understand that you're fighting a much more uphill battle than you were with this, say, like 5-6 years ago. Now you're going to have to contend with AI, and you could still make it work, but you're going to have to really elevate your game in the copywriting space. You're going to have to be a lot closer to that rock star level of copywriting skills if you really want to make this a long-term career for yourself and break through all the saturation that we currently see. And number 2 would be web development. So this is like building websites and things like that. This is a pretty high-paying career and it has really great growth potential as well. And there's still many remote opportunities. And the nice thing is there's many things you can do outside of the 9-to-5 job with freelancing and things like that. I had some friends who were software developers that started up freelancing companies where they would build websites for other companies and things like that. So there's many ways to build your own product and sell it in the web space as well. So a lot of opportunities here. One thing that I will say though is that this one has been hit pretty heavily by AI as well. I'm sure everyone watching this video has heard of something called vibe coding. If you don't, look it up later. It's a pretty interesting thing. You're seeing these advancements in AI where it's becoming less necessary to know how to code because you're able to take advantage of different solutions, whether it's AI solutions or even before the real boom and popularity of these AI solutions, you had things like no-code tools, like no-code website builders and things like that. And honestly, that has put a dent in the web development market as well, especially if you wanted to do some freelance opportunities building websites for smaller businesses. There's less opportunity for that now because, the younger generation, they are pretty savvy with using these no-code tool solutions to build out a website. They would rather just do that. It's going to cost them less money. It's going to be easier for them to manage, easier for them to update and things like that. They don't have to rely on someone else to do that for them. So most of the time, they're just going to go that route. But, even like with my friends with that business, they were mostly targeting boomers that had like mom and pop shops that like they had a good business, but they weren't internet savvy. They didn't have any internet presence, didn't have a website or anything like that. You can still find those people out there for sure. And if you really want to make it work with a route like this, with freelancing, you can. If you want to make it work with the 9-to-5 even, you can. It's just a much more uphill battle than it used to be years ago. If you go back to like 2021, 2022, there was the learn to code movement. Everyone was funneling in there. There were so many opportunities. You could get hired just to tweak one button on a website, and they would pay you to do that because they're trying to artificially inflate their numbers and everything like that. In fact, I had a lot of friends that built businesses around training people how to get into software development. The thing is, like, almost all of those friends that did that, they no longer run those businesses. They gave up on those businesses, and that just kind of shows you just how much the times have changed in terms of how easy this field is to get into, and it's become more difficult and more saturated as well. Number one is cybersecurity. Not without its flaws, of course, like anything, but I do believe that this is the best one. And the reason for that is, for one thing, it is the highest paying out of all the ones that we covered here. It has really great growth potential as well for your career. There are also tons of remote opportunities and freelance available, all the same as we could say with web development. Just to kind of double down on some of these points, in my previous job at Dell, my manager got permission by HR to work from his boat in the Caribbean. He had a really nice boat that had internet on it, and he got permission to just cruise around the Caribbean and work from there. He was a big scuba diver, so he'd go scuba diving every day after work. But the reason that was possible is because he was such a valuable asset at the company, so he had more leverage, so he was able to negotiate that. And there's a lot of stories that I've heard from my friends as well, other people they've worked with that had similar really amazing situations they were able to negotiate because of the high demand you have once you are able to break into this field. When it comes to AI, and this is the big thing that I believe separates this from, say, web development and a lot of spaces out there, a lot of them are being negatively impacted by AI on the job front, whereas cybersecurity, I see it actually being, capitalizing off the AI boom rather than being weakened. I don't want to just say this to you as a blanket statement. I want to actually double down with some proof that I found here. So I'm going to show you here an article by the CEO of Sneak. Now, if you're not familiar with Sneak, it is a vulnerability platform. So they basically have like a vulnerability scanner and things like that, and they have a whole database of security issues that they keep track of. So this is a very credible source. Someone, especially the CEO, he's privy to a lot of information that you and I don't even know about these vulnerabilities. So I would definitely have a listen to what he has to say here. So essentially what he's saying is that he's warning that essentially that AI generated code accounts for 40% more vulnerabilities. If you look here, AI driven development, which is pretty much what everyone is using in the industry nowadays, they're moving to it at the speed of startups, right? AI generated code is actually 30 to 40% more vulnerable than human written code. Pause there, let that sink in for a second. Not only is this not going to change anytime soon, one day they'll probably tighten it up a little bit, but it's so difficult to write secure code to begin with, and it requires so much knowledge about how the application works, how everything fits together. And so there is no, as someone inside, who's worked for over 10 years in cybersecurity, I will tell you, there is no band-aid quick fix to this because vulnerabilities, security issues are very context dependent. So all of this to say in summary is this is something that is very bullish on the future for cybersecurity. I think it's going to be something that's going to be around and running very strong for the next 5, 10, 15 plus years. There are downsides as well. I want to paint a realistic picture here. And the real downsides to this is it's quite oversaturated at the entry level. There's a lot of people that want to get into cybersecurity that are fighting over these entry level jobs, which is making it very difficult for a lot of people to break in right now. And also, number two is it's a very high barrier to entry, meaning that you have to have the skill. There's some ramp up required to be able to get your first job in this field. And there is no one size fits all standard pathway in. So what I mean by that is it's very different than something like becoming a doctor or a lawyer, where there's a very well-trodden path to say, hey, go to, do this major in college and then go to law school and then pass your bar exam and all that. That doesn't really exist. The equivalent of that does not exist in cybersecurity. If you talk to 10 different cybersecurity professionals, you'll hear 10 different stories of how they were able to get in. So if you're considering getting into cybersecurity, but you're concerned about the difficulty, you keep hearing about, oh, it's so difficult, you might actually be surprised to hear that the vast majority of cybersecurity jobs out there are super easy to do. So check out this video on screen right now where I break down, like, what do I mean in this case, despite that popular opinion.